Welcome back for another AutoCAD drawing lesson. Okay, so this one's going to be short and sweet. I know I say that every time, and it ends up being a very long video, but I believe this one should be short and sweet. Okay, so this drawing here was sent to me the other day in reference to some column caps that need to be fabricated. These column caps are going to be two-piece caps because there is a square hole that needs to be fabricated in the center of these caps. There's a steel supporting beam that the cap needs to go around. So let's go ahead and pull this off to the side. Well, first, so as you can see, there's measurements here, and they're all relatively the same, which is good. I'm surprised that the measurements are the same. But let's go ahead and move this off to the side and start the drawing. This is the profile, and I've already recreated the profile previously for this job, and it doesn't look much like a column cap, but that's what we're here today. So the dimensions of the column cap is the first thing we want to start with. So looking at it from the top, we already have a general idea of what it's supposed to look like from the side. So we're going to draw a top view of this column cap using the square or the rectangle tool. Let me double check and make sure that it is a perfect rectangle. Yeah, it looks like it. Okay, so click on the rectangle tool, and we're going to left click anywhere on the open canvas and start dragging that in the general direction of where you want it to go. Then you're going to right click and you're going to click dimensions. This is where AutoCAD is waiting for you to type in a command or a dimension. So the first thing is it's asking for the length. Well, the first column cap that we need to draw here is 27 and by 35. Now I'm hitting enter in between the commands. So 27 by 35. Now the column cap that we just drew, or the square rectangle, is still attached to your cruiser. So the way you get it to deattach and finalize the command is you left click anywhere on the open canvas once it's positioned the way you want it to be positioned. Okay, so on the drawing that was sent, they drew it and they represented the column cap to be square, but obviously in AutoCAD, putting in the exact dimensions, it's more rectangular than it is square, which is fine. But it presents a problem for the measurements for this center post, because basically these measurements no longer work. 5.5 by 5.5, 5.5, 5.5, and I'll show you why. So, well, then again, it could work, but we don't know the dimension of the post. So the dimensions were provided around the post, but the dimension for the post itself was not provided. So that's a little bit of a hang up, and we can go ahead and draw it with the dimensions that were given. But I find it hard to believe that the opening dimension is going to be that large. But we can obviously double check measurements and go through the process. We can go back over here to our plans. It's very possible on the plans it looks like it's a pretty stout column that is on this piece here. So let's go ahead and draw that. Now your next question is probably, well, how do we get a square with, placed in between these other lines with the perfect dimensions that we have here? So the best way to do it is, I wish I could keep this on the same screen and live at the same time, but I can't. Alright, hold on just a minute. I've got a phone call coming in. I apologize. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add these dimensions in. According to the person that took the field dimensions, it's pretty much 5.5 inches from every side, which could or could not be accurate, but let's go ahead and do that. So the way we would do that without knowing the column in the center dimension, is we would use our align tool. We're going to hover over the center point for each exterior line. We're going to drag it in the direction that we want to go. And we're going to type in our measurement, 5.5, which is 5.5 inches. Escape. And we're going to do that 5.5 on every side. 5.5, enter, and then to release the line from your cruiser, you hit escape. 5.5, escape. So essentially, if the measurements are correct, then this box or this leave out is going to be much bigger than what is indicated here on the drawing, where we're indicating it to be this small square. So let's grab our square tool or our rectangle tool. Actually, I take that back. Let's go ahead and grab our measurement tool, our lineal, and we're going to measure this box, or the space in between. So it's going to be 2 foot, 2 foot by 1 foot 4. So we're going to go ahead and use our rectangular tool again. We're going to drag and then dimensions. We're going to create another rectangle that's going to be 2 foot or 24 inches by 1 foot 4. Now, as you can tell, if you don't pay attention to the dimensions or the order that you enter the dimensions, the square that we just created is actually not facing the right side that we want it to face. So you have two options. Either you can redo it and type in the measurements in the opposite fashion, or you can just leave it the way it is, use the rotate tool, which is up here, select the square, and then rotate it the way, in the direction that you want it to be. Okay, so let's delete our dimension lines here. Now, we've already got some guiding lines in the center of this cap here for us. The easiest way to do this, well, because we've already got these lines, is just to use our moving tool. Here, select this, hover over the center line on the top, or it could be on the side as well, because we already have placing lines here. So let's select that line, drag it over, and then click on the point where we want to drop it, which is that guiding line. And that will snap it in between where we want it to go. So as you can tell, this new AutoCAD drawing that we have here, let's go ahead and delete these lines. So this is much, much different than what we would have imagined this cap to look like, based on the dimensions that we just put in AutoCAD. So if you're absolutely confident about your measurements, your next step would just be to finish the details of the drawing out. And in this particular situation, it turned out to be more of a water table than it did a column cap. So hopefully the dimensions are correct, and we can throw some dimensions on here and kind of verify. It's 5.5 inches. So it appears that it is a water table more than a cap itself, and it's 5.5 inches all the way around. The original water table on this job was 4 3/4. It's the same profile, but we're going to have to create a new mold because this is 5.5. And so what we can do is we can come over here to the profile that I created or copied from the water table itself. We're going to go ahead and throw a dimension on here. All right, we want to reduce it to 5.5, and we are going to use the stretch tool. We're going to select the back end of this profile, and then we're going to right click to activate the stretch, left click, and start to drag in the direction that we want it to go. So you have two options. You can type in the measurement that you want to drag it to or shrink it to, or you can do your very best to drag it to the dimension that you want it to be at. So in this case, we need it to be 5.5. 5.5 inches, there you go. All right, so we can go ahead and put some more dimensions on here. Okay. So that is the profile. This is the top view. So let's move this over a little bit. Now we can go ahead and delete that for now. Let's go ahead and add in some lines. We're going to create some corners here. I think what we're going to do, let's go ahead and add some dimension lines in here so we don't get lost later. Okay, so we know that this is the 2'11" by 2'3". And because this is a water table instead of a true two-piece column cap, we are going to just go ahead and take the bigger dimension, which I believe is what we're using right now. Because if you look at this, this is the column cap that I drew. It's 27 by 35. This cap is actually a little bit smaller at 25 by 31. So again, because it's a water table and it's not a true two-piece column cap that actually has to grow, we can use the same drawing for both caps because it's literally just a water table. And on the job site, we're sending out pieces that are going to work for the bigger column cap, but on the job site for these smaller caps, they can just trim off a few inches and use the same pieces. So when we send this drawing, we can just say, hey, we need a total of 6 assemblies, and the stone that we send for this cap will still work for this cap. If it was a true two-piece column cap, that would not be the case, and we would have to make a special mold for each individual size. Let's go ahead and add in our corners on this specific one. I think we're just going to go with rights. So that is a right corner. This is a right corner. This is a right corner. And I believe this is also a right corner. Okay. Now we're going to use our offset tool, 3/8 of an inch, and we're going to create those joints. Okay. We're going to create the line that you see here. That's 3 inches and 1/8 from the face, just to give it some more character, some more depth. So 3 1/8. We're going to select the outermost line, which is this corner here, and we're going to drag it inward so that we can create this line here. Enter. So looking at it from the top, that's kind of what it's going to look like in a two-dimensional plane. We're going to use our line tool, and we're going to add these lines in to indicate that these are corners and this is the slope. I think on a previous video I had told you the difference between carrying the line through all the way to the back versus leaving the line at your previous line. So what that means is this area here is sloped, right? So from this peak to the front edge is sloped. This space here, the 2 3/8, right back here, is actually just flat. And that's why this line stops there, because there's no continuing slope that goes all the way up to the top. Let's go ahead and add in these other lines. Okay. Now let's go ahead and add in some more dimension lines. Let's drag this over. I don't think I have any room here. Okay, so because this is a rectangle, and these pieces are going to be the same as these pieces, and these pieces are going to be the same as these pieces. It's not really necessary from our point of view to put in the measurements on this two sides. We know that this side is going to be 2 foot 5 1/8. That means this side is also going to be 2 foot 5 1/8 because it's isometric. So it's going to be the same on the other side as it is on the first side. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So now that we know that this column cap will work for this column as well, we don't need to recreate another column cap. We can use the same detail. So let's go ahead and lay this out on a piece of paper for printing. We'll go to our layout tab. This job was kind of a hot mess. Okay, type 2, yeah, this job was a hot mess. All right, let's just go ahead and use this one because I think this is what the original drawing was. Let's drag that up. Okay. We will double click inside of our viewport. Let's go ahead and unhide our viewport layer so we can drag that up a little bit more. Find your hidden viewport layer, turn that little light bulb on so that we can see our viewpoint line. Drag that up a little bit. And also we just discovered another viewport that we'll probably actually use for this profile because it's kind of small on the page. So what we'll do is we'll drag this little viewport over a little bit. Let's manipulate this larger viewport for the cap, for the top view. Double click inside of it. Let's drag it over a little bit. Okay. Double click outside. Let's go ahead and drag this over a little bit more. Let's go ahead and drag this one back down. Double click inside. Zoom out with your wheel. Zoom back in. Find your profile. Let's go ahead, right click. You can zoom for a little bit more fine tuning. You can right click exit. Now you're going to double click outside. So what did we just do there? We just created a custom viewport for the profile with a different scale. So we're enabling a larger view of the profile than what would normally be possible if we had it in the same viewport. So as you can see, the measurements here are quite small because we had to zoom out a little bit, and the measurements here are a little bit bigger, and the profile is easier to see because we zoomed in and made it easier to see. Okay, so it's pretty much laid out. I mean, this is a really simple column cap. So what we will do is we'll just change, actually we'll just copy that. Let's move that over here. This is going to change to detail 2. That is the profile. We're going to double click that. We're going to change this to top view. Okay, cast stone caps. That's pretty much what they are. It's more of a water table, but you know, yeah, it's technically a cap, water table cap. Because I had already recreated or created these drawings previously, this page has already been, you know, it's fine. Reunion Court, the job name, everything is all correct. This is still kind of old information. The color is natural. We can go ahead and change our drawing date. And I'm not really worried about the address right now because at this point we're not submitting this for approval. So, all right, so now we can select that. I'm going to go to our hidden viewport. We're going to go ahead and turn those layers off again so the lines go away. And this is pretty much ready. This is ready to send for either approval or fabrication, whichever. Okay, all right. Well, y'all have a good afternoon. We'll see you back next time.